Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the ComicBase live stream. I am your host, Pete Bickford. I am the creator of ComicBase, and for the next, might be a little short today, but usually about an hour, we'll be talking about all things comics and ComicBase related, a little bit of industry news, and honestly, the thing that we get all too rarely in this world, a story about people being nice on the internet that just absolutely made my day, and I just want to share it with everyone. So I think you'll find it kind of cool. Anyway, hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. I want to say hi, first of all, to Richard Scott, who will not be able, be catching us on the live stream on this one. Gregory Hector, moderators in the house here from South Jersey. Mike Beam from the Pacific Northwest Department of Comics, joining us from Florida. Brian Price from Dallas, only 97 in Dallas. Ha, we got you beat. We're like at least 98 here in Tennessee. Davis Comics joining us from lovely Southern California. We're definitely several months a year. You feel very, very clever living in California because damn, the weather's nice out there. 83 degrees out there. Anyway, if you guys have any questions during the show you'd like me to answer, or at least attempt to, please put them in the show to @ComicBase TV. It helps me see them in the comments as they're going by, and hopefully I can call them out and answer them. And also Ed's joining us here from rainy Toronto. And welcome everyone. So the show today, an unusual one for us, is it's a reaction show to our own show from last week. Last week we talked about the top 3 problems that kind of bedevil us on tech support, and kind of kicked around some ideas for what we might be able to do for some of them. Some of these are just perpetual problems. A lot of them have to do with other software you're running on your machine or Windows features or things like that. But as you guys probably know, we're in the process right now of working on the next major version of ComicBase, and as much as is humanly possible, as much as we like throwing out new features and things like that, at least is as important to us is anything that's driving people crazy. And certainly if it drives you crazy enough that you have to call us for help, we want to solve it if that is all possible. So we tried throwing out some ideas last time out, and we actually acted on several of them. And I wanted to kind of share some of that process with you guys and get your early reaction to that, and see what you all think, and as to whether or not that is going to help move the ball down the road for y'all. So anyway, hello here also to Oro Viejo and Gregory Sandoval from out in California. Welcome. And Minneapolis in the house here. 77 degrees. This is Minneapolis, and I'm always like this with the Minneapolis weather report. 77 degrees, cotton ball puff clouds, and 45% humidity. No way. In summer in Minneapolis, you're supposed to be dying. Anyway, so let's get down to it. Before we do, though, a couple of things. Brief bit of ComicBase news. We have a build 1229 just put out. If you guys care a stickler for the full-on version numbers, it's 24.1.0.1229. But anyway, it fixed a minor issue that got reported involving scanning of custom barcodes on magazines and newspapers. It was just kind of a weird one, came out of nowhere, and we're happy to have put it out of its misery. So that bug, as soon as we knew it was dead, within an hour, it was absolutely, as soon as we knew it was alive, it was dead. But if you are of a mind to, feel free to download that. You can get it if you just go to comicbase.com, go under my account and then registrations. And whatever you download from there, you're always going to get the most recent version of the software. It's not a major update. So if you say check for updates, unless you've got the option set and your preferences to show pre-release updates, it won't show up there. But if you want it, anytime you ever want the latest version of ComicBase, just go ahead to registrations in download latest, and you'll get that one. All right, so we're good to go. All right, on tech news, a couple of things worth mentioning. So we talked a few weeks ago about Microsoft's this is the marquee feature for their Copilot Plus PCs, the ones that we're all going to have to get new laptops because they need to have like just psychotic technical specs on them and so forth, and some very some very, very sexy looking laptops, largely built on the Snapdragon processor architecture with neural processing units which have 40 trillion operations per second and all this kind of crazy stuff going on with them. But the marquee feature, the thing was going to use all that horsepower, was a feature they're calling Recall. The idea was, if I'm just doing my job here and I say, like, what was that thing that I was, looking at, 3.5 weeks ago, something about, whatever, that you could start typing in it. And because it had been, wait for it, taking screenshots of your screen every 4 to 5 seconds but the entire time using the machine, that it could say like, "Oh yeah, here you were. This is you when you were like looking up, electronic body music from, Canada or Boston area back in, whatever." Eh, The idea is that you'd be able to basically go back in time through the history of your own interactions with a computer. And then someone noticed, wait, I'm sorry, did you just say you're going to take a screenshot of my screen every 5 seconds times forever and store that? And they're like, oh no, no, don't worry, it's not a privacy issue because we'll store it locally on your machine. And the general reaction of the public was just slack jawed. What? Anyway, it was not whatever it was. It was not the reaction that Microsoft was clearly looking for, and so they have announced after much fanfare and after announcing that yes, those new Copilot Plus PCs, that this was the marquee feature you're going to want them for. They're like, yeah, we're going to actually hold back on releasing that feature for a while because we want to gather further user input on that one. So stay tuned on that one. And if you did buy a Copilot Plus PC, hopefully you're enjoying using it for something else. They do look like nice boxes, I will say that. Anyway, that's tech news number one of the week. Tech news number two is one that it should be old news if you guys are used to, have been paying attention to the live stream, is that OneDrive is now officially backing up all sorts of files in Windows 11 without having ever asked you. This is now officially a Microsoft position. Realistically, it's been an unofficial Microsoft position on a great many installs of Windows 11, particularly Windows 11 Pro. The problem on this one, so OneDrive, of course, is Microsoft's answer to Dropbox. It gives you a magic folder that if you put things in that folder, they get automatically backed up to the Microsoft cloud. Microsoft decided, hey, it wasn't enough that we installed this on your machine without asking. It wasn't enough that we've redirected your documents folder into the OneDrive folder without asking. But they've now officially made the policy like, oh yeah, no, we're totes going to back up your desktop, your documents, a bunch of other folders to our cloud. Just you didn't ever need to say anything. It just started doing it when you installed your machine. We've known that this is a thing they've been doing for a while. We care because it's been causing us all sorts of trouble, because it turns out backing up database files in real time is not a wonderful idea. But anyway, that's apparently Microsoft's new official position. So OneDrive just got officially a little bit more annoying is what that comes down to. So this is a great segue for, hey, remember how we were telling you the other day, one of the biggest problems we've got that we get tech support on is OneDrive. And we had some ideas for what we might do about it. And I'd like to announce that we've actually done some stuff. So let's talk about that. But before I get into it, yes, Department of Comics. I did say sexy laptop. I do believe that laptops should be sexy. That honestly, the more sexy tech you can put into your life, I think you win if you get all the sexy tech in your life. Anyway. All right, and Department of Comics says, yes, I have OneDrive turned off, but they'll probably still take my stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you. One thing about OneDrive is notoriously difficult to fully turn off, or certainly to uninstall. You can uninstall it, but then the next major feature update of Windows tends to put it all back again. There are actually special PowerShell scripts, that people have come up with that'll scrub your registry and rip all the files off and stop all the services and remove it with extreme prejudice. But you still have to run them after major Windows feature updates. So yeah, honestly, our take was that when OneDrive is going to be one of these facts of life for us. Love it or hate it, if it's causing us trouble, we need to find a way to stay the hell out of its way, because it's come to town to live. So what's happening with OneDrive? So very briefly, OneDrive wants to own your documents folder. So if you bought Windows 11, and now if you bought any version of Windows 11, it is going to be on by default, and it will by default, anything you put in your documents folder is going to get shoved up to Microsoft's cloud. The problem with that idea, it's a lovely idea for things like, word processing documents and spreadsheets and things like that. It's a terrible idea for things like databases, because the database file is constantly in a state of change, which means OneDrive is constantly trying to back up rather a large file. It's about a gig and a half to 3.5 gigs in size, the ComicBase database file. And most of that network activity that's busy saturating your network with is actually kind of pointless, because the thing it's backing up while you've got ComicBase open, databases, because they live partly in your computer's memory, partly on disk at all times until they're closed, the thing it's busy backing up all the time, that's busy thrashing your database for, is probably a corrupt copy of the database anyway. So what we have done, because this has been causing various amounts of sundry and weird problems for customers over the years, is we have said, all right, let's start by putting ComicBase in the normal place you're supposed to put all your documents, which is to say your documents folder. And we have a folder underneath your documents called Human Computing, right? Because we're filing things away nicely. We're organized folks around here at ComicBase. Inside the Human Computing folder, in case we launch another product, there's a folder called ComicBase. Inside there's a folder called ComicBase Databases. My God, we are well organized here. And that's where we've been putting the ComicBase database all this time. And that was a great idea until OneDrive decided to co-opt the entire folder. Well, what we have been doing of late is we say, if we see that OneDrive has remapped your documents folder so that the documents folder is now the OneDrive documents folder, but we kind of detect the tampering, and we say, whoa, okay, it's probably not a good idea for ComicBase to be in a folder that OneDrive is controlling, and because the instructions to turn off OneDrive are complicated and well beyond what everyone wants to do. What we've been doing instead is we said, hey, looks like OneDrive is running our machine. This is a problem. Can we just move your documents to a new folder? There's another folder called the public documents. It's for all the shared users of your machine. Can we move your stuff over there, and we'll just open up your database over there? And that way we won't be fighting with OneDrive the whole time. And that was an okay solution. It's what we had. But it's not great on a couple levels. One is that the public documents folder is meant to be shared by all the different users of your machine. You don't really want to put an individual person's documents there. The other one is just just a weird place to put stuff. I mean, people don't even know they have a public documents folder, much less where it is. And so we have not been in love with this. So the idea that we sketched out for handling this one, because again, I don't think we're getting rid of OneDrive, and just putting instructions on how to turn off bad stuff on people's computers is a loser. At minimum, it means that you're doing the tech support that Best Buy should be doing on people's computers. You really just want to, if you're selling software, you just want to avoid the problem. You don't want to coach people through a new training session of how to use Windows. You want to just make it better. So what we decided to do is we said, well, what if we added a ComicBase folder to the main level of your C drive? And we started putting your documents in there. Now, this seems like a very sensible thing to do. It is a very sensible thing to do. It's been something that actually has been made kind of hard to do by Windows because of different security permissions that they use to control the reading and writing of things. But we are allowed to do it, especially at the point when we're installing software. So if we're installing a brand new version of ComicBase, we can actually create a ComicBase folder on the top level of your C drive, and we're going to put things in there. That's going to be the default location for, if you make a new database, that's going to be where it suggests that you put the database. Now you can put it wherever you want. That's your business, but we're going to suggest you kind of keep it in there. That's the new home location. The other thing we'll be doing is when we're writing log files. So like when you update the database every week, we write a big long log file like, well, here's a list of all the things that have changed and stuff like that. And that's in the past been buried well deep inside your documents folder, inside ComicBase and logs and blah, blah, blah. Very hard to find these things. We're actually going to use that to promote that up, and the logs are all getting written into your C drive on the ComicBase folder going forth on the whole thing, and so forth. So the plan here, and again, this is like a new default location for things, and we had to do a lot of prep work to make this all happen. But for you, you don't need to do anything in particular, because if it's working right for you right now, no problem. Keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to move your databases. You don't need to move files around. You don't need to do a thing different. So if you've got ComicBase where you want it and it's all doing great, just keep doing it. You will see no new error messages. You will see no new foo in your life as a result of this change. What will change for us is if people are installing ComicBase for the first time, it just is going to unwrap their database into the new ComicBase folder. The logs all get written there. And when you're going, if there's ever a reason that you want to locate a new database or you want to do things like that, the very first place is going to offer to check. It's going to see if you've got a C ComicBase folder, and if so, it's going to look there first before it goes in and looks for your stuff in either the documents or the public documents folder. So for us, we're actually now searching 3 different whole directory structures in order to find your stuff. But for you guys, it'll all look fairly transparent. No big deal. We've also updated Sidekick and the ComicBase database manager as well. That's the utility we use to let you search for and locate databases. Those have all been updated, so use the new location. So should be pretty transparent for you guys. And again, it sets the groundwork for if we know that OneDrive has moved in the neighborhood and he's not moving out, and we're not going to change his behavior. Basically, we're just sticking out of its way, and so hopefully we can just dodge that whole issue. So that's a thing. And yeah, Department of Comics says, should you move your database out of the documents? No, leave it where it is. It's fine where it is. If you want to move it to the C drive ComicBase database folder, you can. Honestly, you don't need to. It's fine. Honestly, the only people that should pay any attention to this at all are the people who are already using OneDrive, where their stuff got moved into public documents, where if it's less confusing to you, you can move it out into the C ComicBase folder. ComicBase database is there. But worry about that when the next version ships. And but honestly, if you don't need to ever worry about it all, then that's the win for everyone, right? All right, so let's go on from that one. What's OneDrive? I can control Google Drive. Yeah, Google Drive has never had the guts to be as obtrusive as OneDrive has been. All of these utilities, whether it's Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, there are others. There's one called Box. I don't know if they're still around, and so forth. All of these are the same concept. The idea is it's a magic folder on your drive that if you put stuff there, it goes up to someone's cloud. And when we say cloud, what we're really talking about is we're talking about someone's hard drive, up on the internet that you have access to. It just magically gets synced up to there. And this is wonderful for things like backups or sharing files casually and things like that. Because if I want to share a spreadsheet with someone, I can just drop it into either a OneDrive or a Google Drive or a Dropbox, give people a web link to it, and boom, they can see the same file that I just put up there 5 minutes ago. That's a wonderful thing. But like I say, a great idea, but man, way, way, way over-applied in this case. And the thing that makes it really a pain in the ass is that Microsoft just said, hey, we own Windows, man. We don't need to ask permission. And they just didn't. So that's the deal. Okay, so and there's a whole discussion in the chat now about the sexiness of laptops. So go figure. All right, so there we go. All right, so other things that are going on. So some of the other tech support tips, honestly, we're still looking at because they involve, like I say, things that tend to be like people's security software is actually a frighteningly large amount of our tech support. Is that someone's running a security suite, ESET or Kaspersky, which by the way has just been banned by the State Department for use on. It's been banned for use on government laptops, but now they're trying to put an import restriction where you can't sell in the U.S. anymore because it's Russian owned. But there's a million others. Norton, McAfee, it goes on, something Bitdefender, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's got a security suite. It usually came pre-installed with your machine. If not, there's a million people trying to sell you stuff. And it all tends to be fairly obtrusive software. The stuff that works, that's built into Windows is actually pretty damn good and isn't terrible to deal with. And ComicBase, I'll tell you, works. We test against, and it works beautifully with all the Windows stuff. But half the stuff where people are calling us for just random tech support, like say, I'm trying to install pictures, it's taken forever, blah blah blah. It almost always comes down to your security software. If you're having any kind of problem with your computer of performance or just things being weird. Ironically, the two things I would try after you make sure your computer's updated with Windows, the latest Windows, is try turning off, or better yet, uninstalling your security software. The reason I say uninstall is because a lot of these suites I just mentioned will just out and out lie to you. if you look at them in the task manager and see how much resources they're using, how much disk, how much everything else, even if you say disable yourself for 15 minutes, they are grinding like crazy and they never stop. And as far as I can tell, there's no choice, there's no change between when they are so-called off and when they're on and causing all the trouble. So if you're having performance issues of any sort, as a diagnostic step, try uninstalling your software, your security software, restarting, and if your problem just immediately gets better, well then get yourself a different security suite. That would be my general advice to people with things like this. Although, ironically, another, and this is very much a kind of a 95-10 kind of thing. The 95 is that your security suite is causing the trouble, but there is the other, there's 95-10. Yes, I'm doing math. 95-5. The other 5% of the time, you might actually have malware on your machine. So do find something to scan your machine manually with. Again, Windows Defender is excellent for things like that. That could be a thing. But yeah, so some of the security software stuff, honestly, I think the best we're going to be able to do with stuff like that is messaging. In other words, if we can detect that a performance problem is in effect. So if you're installing the pictures that come with ComicBase and it's taken more than like 15 minutes, we could probably put up some kind of message saying, hey, yeah, I think you noticed this is taking a while. Well, this is what you probably ought to be doing right now. And it's going to be turn off your security software because it's probably gassing up the whole works. That's number one. Number two, and it's a distant number two, is that you have some very weird network connectivity thing. And ironically, we found a weird number three, which I'll talk about later about your sleep modes, but we'll hit that one later. Anyway, the other one that we managed to get do some real good on this last week is we had it in as our bonus of tech support problem of our, we had our top three, but the bonus one I said is moving ComicBase to a new computer does get us at least a call a week, on average. Not that it's hard to do. I really just install ComicBase on the new machine. You carry over your database file, double click to launch it, and you're there to, you're good to go. But it's just complicated enough, and your data is important enough that people worry, and I don't fault you for worrying at all. We have a step-by-step on our website, but again, anytime, as they say, anytime you're explaining, you're losing. And so we thought, well, what could we possibly do to make the process better? And we came up with some ideas, and we actually managed to put one of them in effect, to wit. Because we have, as you guys know, invested very, very heavily in networking infrastructure on our back end, and a lot of things that we're doing here to try to just make the network services for ComicBase as easy as possible, and and handle the load as well as possible. We can actually take on things that we never could have dreamed of before, and one of them is the idea that right now, if you want to back up your database in ComicBase, you have it set to use a separate program called ComicBase Sidekick. It's a companion program. It runs down your notification area. I can probably show it to you if I switch over to the other screen here for a second. Nope, come on. Or maybe that monitor decided to go down on me. Sweet. All right, we will not show that one at the moment. Okay, well, there goes that little demo. I guess I'll be moving stuff to the main computer for a second. Hang on just a second here. I'm just going to do the old thing where I pull a cable and plug the cable back in. Give me just a sec. There's that one. Yes, and this is the extreme close-up on my face. There it is. And there's that one. And then finally, there's that one. Okay. Now I've managed to throw the focus on my camera completely off. All right, cool. And let's see, did the demo machine come back online with the port? Nah, of course not. All right, that would have been too simple. All right, well, so it goes. We'll make this happen. Anyway, so Sidekick runs in the notification area. It's basically down by your clock. There's all the little icons that do incidental things on your computer. The battery. Probably you have contacts down there. Dropbox usually runs down there and so forth. But Sidekick, because his whole job is to run the background, just handle the kind of like the scut work on your computer. One of the things he does is he backs up to the cloud, which is to say, when you back up to a cloud, remember I said backing up to the cloud is just says, I'm going to copy your file to someone's hard drive, in this case, our hard drive, located on the internet. So that's in our data center. So basically what that does, unfortunately, involves compressing down a very large file. Your database could be up to 3.5 gigs, compressing it down to about 700 megs in size, and then sending that over the internet to our hard drive. This is typically something that, even if you have a really bitchin' hard drive, is going to take several minutes to do. For me, located on a gigabit connection with a very fast computer, it's like 3-4 minutes for me. Other people, it could be 15 minutes if you have just a really bad connection. Typically, your up speed is the weak link for people's internet. Is they can typically get stuff coming down like Netflix very quickly, but to get it back up, because people tend not to push up to the internet all that much unless you have fiber. Your up speed tends to be much slower than your down speed, and so that it tends to suffer. So that's why we have Sidekick there to do all the stuff in the background, so you're not sitting around waiting for it. You can be using stuff on your own, just in the program. Well, so our thought was, we wanted to find, is it possible? Could we ever do this? That you could, first of all, initiate a backup from within ComicBase, not just Sidekick. So not just this program that runs in the background when you're not using your machine and you're not going to be paying attention to how long things take. Could we do it from within ComicBase in a reasonable way? And also, if we're really feeling lucky, could we make this thing happen every time you exit the program? So in other words, I launch ComicBase, I exit the program, and 20 minutes later, I could go look on the cloud and I'd see a backup of my database. And I could also look in my mobile app and see all my latest comic books. The mobile app, when you're looking at it, you're actually looking at our servers to give you that information. And it's only when you're back up to the cloud that we even know what you've got. So the data lives on your machine. Until you share it with us, essentially, we don't know what you have at all, so we can't give it back to you in terms of the mobile app. So that's why the backing up to the cloud is so key. So we thought, well, is this possible to make this happen? And we thought about it a long time. A lot of things you can think about while you're walking your ginormous dog around the neighborhood out here. And one of the things I think we managed to... And there he is, just on cue. I think he's listening and literally heard the word walk. And so he's like, woof, 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 woof. So anyway, now if he would come up here on camera, then I could get some views. But anyway, no, he's notoriously camera shy. I think we managed to only catch him on the show once. But he's going to woof up and screw the audio for the entire time. I'm just going to talk over him. Anyway, so as we're walking around the whole thing, we actually had some thoughts on how to make all this magic happen in a way that won't block you from using ComicBase, that'll work in an acceptable amount of time, and hopefully it doesn't bury our servers. And we managed to put this whole thing into practice, and we rolled out to our developer channel. We have as you guys probably know, a great many are in the group, a in-house testing group where if you want to be part of the early testing of new releases, we invite you onto our Slack channel. We give you access to the next version, and so we get your feedback as we're developing the product, and we can try things out. But the way it basically works is, if you're in ComicBase and you want to back up to the cloud, it just briefly closes the database up, saves a copy, immediately reopens the copy. So on my machine, the whole thing takes like 8 seconds, and then you're back up running your thing. But in the meantime, what it's done is it's spun up a process where it says, okay, that copy I just made, go ahead and compress it, and then send it over to Sidekick and tell Sidekick to get that thing backed up the cloud ASAP, right? And the Sidekick basically has got its own private watch folder now, where it's looking for these requests from ComicBase that's sent over saying, oh wait, we got a request from ComicBase stat, let's get this thing backed up. And then as soon as it can, and this is one of the only times that it can do stuff while ComicBase is running, because it's actually working on a copy of your data. So it's not blocking you at all. You can keep working in the program. It's setting the thing up to the cloud. So you'll just notice if you go into ComicBase, there's a new option of the file menu and the new version that says save to cloud. And if you do that, you can just go look up on the mobile app in 20, 30 minutes or so, depending on your internet connection. You'll see all your new stuff, and your new backup will be on there. So that's the basic version of how to do it initially. And then we also added a new preference option So when you're exiting the program, there's an option right now to compress the files to save backup space. And if you haven't done it before, really good idea. It saves a ton of space. Wow, the thunder is coming in here. So everything is like fighting for the audio here on the show. So hopefully it's not too loud. And if the power goes out, you will know. But anyway, if you're using ComicBase, go up under your setup menu, go to preferences, and one of the options there is, first of all, is whether or not you want to save a backup when exiting the program. Leave that checked. It's a really good idea. But also consider, if your machine is not very, very underpowered, check the box to automatically compress the backup files to save space. Because if you do that, the backups will take about a fifth of the space that they would take up normally. It'll free up a ton of your disk space. And the other thing is, we made it so that the next option to automatically send to the cloud is actually dependent on you choosing that backup, the compress thing, because it needs to be able to compress the file and work with it there. So if you choose the one, you get a new option of having the other as well. And anyway, a feature's been, now Dodger comes up. Sorry, he was just right off the stage left there. By the time I looked at him, he bolted downstairs again. Sorry, guys. I keep trying to get him on here. I'm just going to have a mobile GoPro for him. But anyway, we'll get him on camera one of these days. Anyway, so brand new option. It's early days on this one. It just got working yesterday, but on the other hand, it was only proposed 5 days earlier, and we expect to have this one as part of the next version of ComicBase. Pretty slick. I'm going to say I'm pretty psyched about it so far, and we'll dig it. So all right. So other questions that people have here. ComicBase TV, Department of Comic has. You got for cool shirts like the one you're wearing for sale. Yeah, this was like an old Atomic Academy staff shirt. At some point I got to get some new shirts made. We typically had these for our staffers at when we do shows, either for Atomic Avenue or ComicBase, and so we haven't done them for a couple years here because it's been a while since we've done trade shows. But it's a good idea. I know we ran the idea up the flagpole a while ago, and there was a fair amount of interest. So yeah, we should try to make that happen. Department of Comics also asks, is there a way to Sidekick to stay active while updating? Always have to shut them off during updates. Sidekick, so what Sidekick does, the whole trick with Sidekick is he can't use the same file you're using to do updates if you are updating it yourself. So the only thing he can do, he can read your file, but he can't update your file, because you can't have two programs trying to update the same records at the same time, because otherwise, it's like crossing the beams in Ghostbusters. Bad things happen. So Sidekick you'll typically, when you look at Sidekick, if you have ComicBase open at the time, you'll see all the options are grayed out, and you'll see a big message at the bottom that says certain options are not available while Sidekick is while ComicBase is running. Close ComicBase to enable these. And if the second you close ComicBase, you'll see all those options suddenly light up, because we can't risk having Sidekick fighting for control of your database while you're doing it. So that's why that does it. That said, because of the way that we architected this backup to the cloud feature with the auto backups and the backup initiated from ComicBase, like I say, we pulled a sneaky on this one, where let's say my database is called Pete's ComicBase database, right? Typically, when I exit ComicBase, it makes a thing called Pete's ComicBase database parenthesis backup, and then the time that I backed it up, and it will make 5 of those, and it recycles after that. So it makes a copy, and then it works from there. What we've done is we've made it so that Sidekick, when you initiate these backups from ComicBase, is only ever working on your most recent backup. It's not working from your active file, and that's why it's got free reign to post that up to the cloud and do things with it, and it doesn't tie you up. So that's pretty great, but we can't do that generally. We can't have it be doing active work on your active database normally. So we can't have you can't say, hey, Sidekick, optimize my database while I've got a title open in ComicBase. That's not a thing that can happen. So anyway, so it goes. All right. Lol, Dodger can. Yeah, I got to make that happen at some point. I actually did get the some new camera mount gear. There are certain videos I want to shoot that I want to shoot from my point of view. Honestly, I'm thinking about things like car and other construction project type videos, just because believe it or not, guys, as much as I love y'all, and because most of my brain power is focused on this all the time, there are other things I got to do from time to time just to stay sane as a human being. So anyway, some of them involve obscure amounts of car maintenance and repainting and dent pulling and things like that. So I wanted to be able to do some of that work, but so I have gotten some remote camera ability for that sort of thing. But also the idea of mounting like a GoPro and Dodger just strikes me as that thing would be YouTube gold. I got to make that happen. Anyway, moving on. All right, so that's like I say, if you guys are in the group working on the next, with us on the next version of ComicBase, codename Magic Castle, you'll see these changes already in the latest builds, and you'll see much more of that kind of stuff as we go. But I think it's kind of neat. And then the final aspect of this, so why do we want to back up to the cloud so aggressively? Because it solves one really neat problem for us, is if I know that every time you exit the program, you have the option of backing up to the cloud. And certainly if we can make it so Sidekick is very good at always pushing your stuff up to the cloud, but particularly if we can make it so that it's feasible to make it happen every time you exit the program, well, then upgrading to a new machine is a piece of cake, right? Because then if I decide, okay, I've got a Intel 12th generation desktop I'm on right now. Let's say ComicBase, we launched a new version. I'm feeling very flush, and I want to go buy myself a bitchin' new desktop, and I want to install ComicBase on it. If I want to move my database over, I don't even need to carry it over on a thumb drive or anything like that anymore. Literally, the fact that I exited ComicBase on my old machine, and then I boot up my new machine, and I just go to the website and I install ComicBase. What I can do then is, the very first time you run ComicBase, if I see that you don't have a database on there already, I can look at your account and say, hey, do you have any saved? In which case I can say, well, hey, you've got, did you want to make a new database, or do you want to restore that one that you saved earlier today, which I can just download and we can start running from that one. And in which case I'm like, boo, yeah. It's like, yeah, make the magic happen. At which point you don't need to do anything. Just install, kick back, and you're good to go. Now, if I can get you to turn off your goofazoid antivirus software they installed on your new machine that's driving your performance to death, then we would be truly styling. But it does make the whole thing much slicker, and also because we can be very aggressive also about driving these kind of cloud backups. Again, if you want it, it's a preference. It's under your control. We're not doing anything without your say-so, unlike Microsoft. But if we make it possible to very frequently do these kind of backups, it also becomes much more reasonable if anything ever happens with your database. I mean, if you blow out a hard drive, or you rename the file, or you lose it, or you accidentally delete it, things like that, there's a little dialogue that comes up. If we ever lose your database file, if it's not where it was last time, we'll say, hey, we can't find your database file. Where is it? And we ask you to steer around your hard drive and open up a file. Well, we can give you a new option on that one. Now we can give you an option of saying, well, did you want to find the file, or do you want us to just use the backup that you saved, 90 minutes ago, or last time you exited the program, and we just restore that one and just pick up from where you were. Granted, depending on your internet speed, it'll take a couple of minutes more, but it'll be like a couple minutes more. It won't be like start over, drive yourself crazy looking for files, and much nicer. All right. And Department Comics says, I have ComicBase set to check for back updates at midnight, but a lot of updates come out during the day. Is there a way to have them check for updates every hour as long as CB is not running? I believe so. Let me, unfortunately, for some reason that, again, that video connection into the switcher. I'm gonna be a ornery cuss and just plug that from the switcher side one more time. Let's see if it can come back to life for me. Come on. Nope. No. It decided to dump my keying. That's pretty special, but not what I wanted. Yeah, don't know why the demo computer doesn't want to put out. If you guys saw the rig back here, you would laugh, because every computer is putting out like 5 different monitors on everything. So it's ridiculously complicated what we're expecting all these little tiny budget machines to do. But apparently it just decided before showtime that it did not feel like putting out to the monitor. So anyway, but to answer your question, if you go to the setup in ComicBase Sidekick, you can go and say how often it checks for updates. I believe there's an option for hourly for that check. If not, there's at least option check for it daily. And if you have it check at like 9 at night, if we pushed an update that day, you're gonna get it. Which, by the way, the folks back in editorial are working on this week's update, and they should have it tonight. So we're looking forward to that one today. All right. Sorry, I'm getting. Wow, it is really coming down out there. It's a shame I don't have, when I'm talking about all these monitors, it's a shame I don't have a thunderstorm cam, because dang, that came out of nowhere and it's just really howling right now. An hour ago it was lovely in here. I don't know what's going on. All right, but I am actually, just as I'm waiting on this thing, I'm actually going to restart the demo machine. Maybe we'll get it back. We'll find out here. Whoops. All right, so now I really want that, because I had a bunch of stuff queued up to show you. All right, so let's push on and talk about some other stuff. All right, well, I'm waiting on that. Okay, cool. All right, so okay, so questions that have come up from people in for editorial. Brian had asked us, hey, I'm working on indexing a book, and it's got a lot of AI assisted art in it. How do I credit it? So let's say it's, I don't remember the actual artist name. I'm just going to call him Mark Brown for now. But if Mark Brown had, created a bunch of the art, but on other things like, he'd used Midjourney or DALL-E or Gemini or something like that to make, hey, it came back. All right, sweet. and sorry, I got very excited because turns out the restart caused it to light up the monitor again and say, hey, look, I can show the other computer again. All right, so anyway, now that I've moved on from the topic, excellent timing, by the way. So so let's say Mark Brown had gone in there and he used other tools for creating this stuff. Do we credit Midjourney or do we credit Mark Brown on the whole thing? And we hashed out with editorial. That was a big topic of our staff meeting this week. The consensus basically came down to if Mark Brown is signing that he wrote it, then you give him the credit, and we don't care about what tools he used to make it. The counter, all right, so I'll give you the argument, I'll give you the counter argument. The argument for it is just as once upon a time we used to really care whether this was digital art, digital painting, or whether it was traditional pen and ink. We used to really care whether there was a canvas or if it was digital paint. The tech moves on furiously. It can't be stopped, and people have stopped noting it. I was shocked. We actually approached Brian Bolland to do the next year's cover, and we're kind of going over details of things. It turns out that one didn't come out, but part of the discussion was, I said, well, hey, typically, wow. And I think we just lost folks. Let's find out. All right, are we live? Are we live? StreamYard says we're still live. Excellent. All right, guys. So this is your cue that UPSs, if you don't have them, are really good things. UPS is an uninterruptible power supply. If you don't have one attached to your gear, get one. They will save your ass. And if the stream is still on, then that means that this whole thing worked, even though our power just dipped. Anyway, so but the idea is, we talked to Brian and said, well, hey, if you've got an original canvas, of course, I'd love to make you a deal to buy that as well. It's like, hey, man, I haven't painted on canvas for like 20 years. And I was like, really? I couldn't tell. And that's the truth. You couldn't tell. Anyway, all this stuff is going to be part of our work set, whether we like it or not. I mean, if I am doing my work on a Wacom tablet using Photoshop and I'm digitally drawing stuff in, I literally, the tools that are built into Photoshop, I could be drawing a dragon on the whole thing, and I've got fire raining down the sky. And if I decide I want that sky to be bigger and I just make the canvas larger, Photoshop will just fill in the rest of the canvas for me of what it thinks I might have wanted. I can set it to be just black and draw it all manually, but the default isn't that. The default is that, well, let me take a shot at it. And so and the same thing goes where if you want to get rid of things, or context-aware fills and so forth. But in big ways and small, much more of the content that people are working with you could not say that they put pen to either drawing pad or pen to paper to make that happen. Whether they're mixing and matching digital elements from other things, whether photocompositing, whether they're just using this kind of weird AI that's getting to be integrated into the workflow. It's senseless to ask them about it. I don't think you can tell. And the other thing is, I think more and more people would just lie. I think we're all a little embarrassed about the idea, because I think we're all on Team Human. So I mean, in this kind of John Henry versus the steam shovel race that we've all got with AI, we're all we love the eye candy that AI gives us. I mean, so we just look at the image and say, "Oh, that's a good image," but at the same time, we all wish that was a human who cooked it all up. And increasingly, that won't really be the truth. And I think the artists and everybody involved with it are going to have a really strong incentive to not really be fessing up about it. So that's why, even though it'd be really handy, and this is the counter argument, it'd be really handy to say, well, yeah, it's Brian Bolland, but this is Brian Bolland plus an AI thing. You could try that one. I don't think we could ever make that stick. And honestly, I don't think artists would. I think only in this weird little, very, very short transitional phase right now do people even think to be talking about it. And that's going to pass faster than and it won't be real. So at this point, it's just, hey, if you put your name on it, it's yours. If you created it, however you created it, if it was just you exercising editorial control over an assisted AI thing, or if you drew every freaking feather on that, on that bird yourself, that's the only name that makes any sense to put down. By the way, in the last couple of months, we've had both instances of a person being disqualified from a contest because it turned out that their image was AI. We've, from a juried contest, and we've had another one where they held an AI contest. It was only meant to be for AI, and a guy with just a beautiful picture of a bird that he took got disqualified because it wasn't AI. It was really a real photograph. We live in weird times, guys, but it's not gonna get any better. I think the artist is, the standpoint we came down to is, is the artist's name on it is who you credit with it, and then we're just gonna have to educate ourselves as to how they work. If they use a lot of AI, they'll just become as known as part of their style. If they don't, that'll become known as part of their style too. But yeah, we are in such fast change on this one that we're never going to be able to separate the tool from the creator on this one. That is my thoughts. All right, so a lot of comments came in here. Congrats to Department of Comments. He's a very excellent wife. Gave him two 27-inch curved monitors for just I guess it's just an everyday surprise. So well done. All right, so let's see here. TV looked at radar. It's a pretty narrow line of storms. Wow, that's very nice of you. Some people are checking the weather, so I don't need to worry about it. I'm just saying, from my window right here, it's like Armageddon out there. Yeah, I think the idea of a checkbox for AI assistant, I don't think we could. I don't think it'd be meaningful. And I don't think it'd be real, because I think at one point it's almost like, there's a blue comment on this, which I won't say because it's a family podcast, but what they say about certain sex things is that, yeah, there's two kinds of men, those who do it and those who lie about it. I think that's going to be where we're at with art. There'll be artists who use AI and artists who lie about it. All right, so PSAs, by the way, nothing can stop this week's PSAs. Number one, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, which I, of course, forgot to say. This is complete YouTuber malpractice. But if you're watching this, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, and if you would, please leave a comment in the chat, especially if you're catching this live, or I'm sorry, later on, because it really does help getting these distributed in the feed. Don't forget that the ComicBase message boards are at forums.comicbase.com, and you can propose all sorts of things. You can get, help neighbors, get helped by neighbors, and also propose topics for live streams, which is another thing we've got there. And also, I think the obligatory plug, of course, for Andre's amazing world famous ComicBase cover catalog, which, again, insane. But imagine all 1,053,000 covers in ComicBase printed out. Yes, that could be you. Department of Comments says she got it because she loves him. Well done, Department of Comments. I'm, good on you, man. All right. I'm going to handle one other quick question here, and then I think we're going to pack it in because I don't want to push my luck any further than it's already been. We've already had a power out that we came back from, so we're going to take the win if we got it. All right, question came up a couple times over the last couple weeks. People having trouble backing up to the cloud. Big topic today, right? Obviously we care about backing up to the cloud quite a bit. If you are having trouble backing up to the cloud, there are typically two reasons why this would be the case. Let's start with the easy one. Your network could suck, right? If your network sucks, and this is the easiest way to find out does my network suck, is just go to speedtest.net and look particularly at your upload speed. If your upload speed is, you're looking for a number that ends in megabytes, ideally with 2 or more digits before the word megabyte. So, if it says you're putting, up to the cloud at 20 megabytes or 50 megabytes or 150 megabytes, you are styling. But something like that is what you're hoping for. If speedtest.net says you're putting up in kilobytes, then call somebody and get better internet, or call your provider, because I'll bet you anything that there's no way that is what they promised you. I say this based on the idea that Starlink, like, I could be having a war going on outside my window, and Starlink will put me up with, I believe, 20 megabits megabytes up to the cloud. So if they can make that happen in a place where they might not, be like working plumbing, then gosh darn it, someone can get you better than like 150 kilobytes up to the internet. So do check speedtest.net. That's obviously the first thing you want to do. But let's assume your internet is working pretty good, but the cloud backup's taken forever. What could the cause be? All right, we said before, we'll say it a million times, it's software, right? And so let's talk about what kind of software it could be. All right, so let's get ComicBase out of the way to start with. Do you have the latest version of ComicBase? If you do not, download the latest version of ComicBase. Just go to My Account, Registrations on comicbase.com. Download the latest version if you're using anything but, because we guarantee the latest version is going to work great. Something in the past, who knows? We could have had a problem, we could have fixed it, but any doubts, always with software, get the latest version and then troubleshoot from there. Secondarily, let's check your Windows. So go to Windows Update and check for all. Go down to the advanced settings and make sure that you're also checking to get all the driver updates. So if it's got a driver update for your network driver, things like that, you want to get it. So go to Windows Update, download the latest Windows installs. If you've been putting that off forever and you've got like 50 pending up, now is a great time to get that done with and get those installed. Now, having said that, neither of those last two things is typically the reason people call us with this problem. Typically, the reason people call us with this problem is, yes, I've been banging on all day long. It's your damn security software. Turn the off. Let's pretend I did not just contort my lips into horrible, words there, which I did not say out loud. But yeah, turn off your, if you're running non-Microsoft security software, try turning it off, just as a test. And if it turns out that you can uninstall the thing and everything in your life gets better, find different software. But that's typically, I'm going to say that's the 90% case of why people call with problems like this. But then I will say we discovered a rather, it was amusing to us once we figured it out case, which has come up. Make sure that your laptop isn't set to go to sleep in 3 minutes. That's a thing. Apparently, if a lot of y'all use laptops, a lot of y'all sometimes don't plug them in, but if your laptop is set, if you're using it like a desktop and it's set to go to sleep, if it goes to sleep, the transfer is not going to complete, because when it shut down your thing, it shut down everything. It shut down the internet, shut down your screen. It stopped doing work. So if you wake up from sleep and said, well, the web request client failed, turn off sleep on your laptop. At the very least, set your power settings. And what you want to do is you want to go to your Windows menu and type in power. They'll take you to the power configuration settings for your machine. Set it so that when you're connected to AC, that you do not turn your computer off for at least half an hour or an hour. If it's a laptop, it's barely burning any power anyway. So, but yeah, you've got to give it time to actually do the transfer. The file you're putting up, if you're backing up a database file to ComicBase, is about 700 megabytes. Think about it, on it as an average. And so, if you divide your network speed up by 700 megs by your network speed, you get a rough idea for how long it should take to push that file up to the servers. And so yeah, make sure that you're not turning off the machine while it's in the middle of that, because otherwise you'll be calling us for help, and we'll be frustrated. By the way, in the spirit of I always like to prevent problems rather than try to yell at people afterwards, because yelling doesn't help anyone. It raises everyone's blood pressure. Everyone's blood pressure too high anyway. Always best. You're always coolest if you could just say, "Hey, did you know that your power sleep settings are set to something completely unreasonable, and that's never going to work with this?" I did look in a fair amount today to see if there's some way we could detect all your sleep settings within ComicBase. I'm just going to say, not reasonably. I mean, there's so many edge cases and weird stuff in there that this is one that you're just going to have to not do. We can't warn you ahead of time because you said, "No, we noticed your sleep setting set for 2 minutes, so that's probably going to cause you trouble." That is one I'm just going to have to get the word out on. So that's a thing. All right. With that said, I want to kind of close out. I promised you a happy story for once, and I'm going to deliver. You guys might remember a couple months ago, we were talking about AI, as we often do on this show. And I was talking about how I was trying to use AI to help me remember a video, or actually to locate the source of a sample I had heard, which I had remembered that one time I'm watching late night TV in like 1998, and I heard, I wasn't paying attention to TV, but then suddenly I heard the original source that the sample came from, and I was like, "What? What is that?" And as I recalled, it was from a Ray Bradbury story that was being adapted to some kind of TV or moviedom. It was late night TV, so what do I know? And I, for the life of me, I could not figure out what it was. So what this music in question is from a band called Manufacture. This is a kind of like a poppy industrial band. Came out around 1989. 1989, they were on Network Records out of Canada. Fabulous band. As most bands of the time, they were two people, MIDI programmers and people slamming on drums and making weird electronic noises and things like that, and mixing up lots of cool samples. But gosh darn it, this was my jam in terms of like going out to clubs and stuff like that. And they were cool, very good stuff. A buddy named Kai Johnson turned me on to them. So hi Kai, if you're watching. Anyway, but the song in question was their big breakthrough hit called "As the End Draws Near," featuring Sarah McLachlan, a label mate who had just been discovered and had just been signed to Network Records as well. And the opening sample was something along the lines of his old man talking about like the people of the earth were reconciled on the last night of the earth, and the TV show, as I recalled it from, was a horrible, horrible story where a planet, all the village elders had calculated and they figured out a comet's going to destroy the world tomorrow. It is going to be horrible. It will be unbelievable devastation, nothing but pain and suffering. It'll take the whole world out. Nothing can be done. All there's left to do is painfully die when this thing hits. And so they have a meeting, and a decision is taken that in order to spare the children from this horrible catastrophe, they're going to basically slip something into their drinks at night and painlessly put them out of their misery in their sleep. So they'll just wake up dead, right? And the parents will be around to, deal with the consequences, but the children won't have to suffer. That was the idea. And then the next morning comes and they figured out they made a mistake. There was no comet hitting the thing. It just narrowly missed. And so then, yes, they're living with the consequences. So dark as hell. It was like really haunting film. And one of the speeches is as they're talking about the plan, is the idea that, yes, the peoples of the earth, we were fighting all the time, but now we'll be reconciled on the last night of the earth. So I'm looking for this thing because I want to reread the story, and it's buzzing around in my head. I'm listening to, this industrial music and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, God, I just got to find this thing. I try Googling everywhere. I get nowhere. Checking all my Ray Bradbury stories. Turns out Ray Bradbury has read probably 1,000 stories in his life. This is not going to get me nowhere fast. I tried ChatGPT. ChatGPT very confidently tells me, yes, I know exactly the story you're talking about. You've asked me for what's the story where people euthanize their children because they think a comet's going to hit, and it turns out it's not. That's a story called The Veldt by Ray Bradbury, and they just repeated my own words back to me, where they euthanize their children because they think the comet will hit. And I know what The Veldt is. The Veldt is basically a completely different story about kind of a sensory TV. It's kind of like 3D and better, except you can, crawl into it and get eaten by lions and stuff. But anyway, definitely not the story. I said, that's not it. Try again. And it took care very, very, said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was so mistaken. It was really this." And it gave me another wrong answer. And it kept on going like that. So eventually I said, like, screw you, ChatGPT. And I tried other things, asked friends, no one knew. I gave up. So I'm working on the feature I was just talking about that I did this week. And when I'm really heads down programming, I can't have TV or anything else on go in the background. I got to have just music going. And what do you know? Manufacturer comes up again as the end draws near. And I'm like, God damn it. And now I'm half out of my mind because I need to know the answer to this thing. And I've tried the Chat GPTs, I've tried the Googles, I've tried all the things. I'm getting absolutely nowhere. I browsed through my Red Bradbury collection. I'm getting absolutely nowhere. And suddenly something rather obvious occurs to me. It's like, well, why don't I just find out who was in manufacturers, see if they got a web page and reach out to them? It's like, it's 2024. What the hell? We don't need to stand on ceremony. Apparently, if I want to know, what kind of guitars Pete Townsend was using on a given tour, you can apparently just find his webpage and ask him, and who knows, he might even answer. So I found out who was in manufacture, and it's a couple of guys named Brian Bothell and a guy named Perry Geyer. Perry being the, I think the more technical to do, he's kind of their keyboard tech and stuff like that. And Brian apparently has dropped out of the world. I mean, he exists nowhere on the internet anymore, as far as I could tell. But Perry's still there, and so I just in desperation, I just said, I looked for Perry Geyer, and it's like, holy crap, there he is, and I found his webpage, which I think I can. Well, let's see if I can pull this up. I had it up on this other. Yeah, here we are. Let me pull it up. There he is, Perry Geyer, and he's with Cybersound Studios in Boston, Massachusetts. You look at him down here, and he's exactly the guy. I mean, as soon as you see him talking, you're like, yep, that's the guy. And yeah, he runs a studio out in Boston, which looks like it's actually pretty damn good. Apparently, he was working with the Cars, Greg Hawkes, the keyboardist from the Cars, and apparently bought the studio that they had used afterwards, and has been turned to a very successful venture afterwards. He recorded everybody in there since. And so I thought, well, clearly this is a guy with nothing else to do in his time that answered the question that's been driving me insane for, probably at this point months. And so I find his contact information and for Cybersound Studios, and I say, question for Perry. And I say, I know this comes out of left field, but I'm trying to find what the source of the opening sample uses, the end draws near. I seem to recall it was this story about the comet and something like that, and I cannot find it. Anything, I know it's weird, but anything you can do to help, really appreciate it. Thanks, Pete. And 10 minutes later, I get a reply. And it's like, oh yeah, happy to help. It was from the Illustrated Man. And it was, as I recall, we had to tune it up for part, quite up for part of it, which is why when you actually listen to the song, there's a part where it sounds like a little girl talking, and which is really just the guy talking, tuned up a couple octaves. And I'm like, Illustrated Man? Holy crap. I've looked through Outer Limits. I've looked through Ray Bradbury Theater. I've looked through Twilight Zone. I've searched so much media to try to find this thing. No, it came from a completely forgotten, and I will say completely forgotten by me, certainly, movie, which was kind of an anthology, I believe 1969, featuring Ray Bradbury. The song was called The Last Night of the World, and the reason it didn't, despite the fact that it literally mentions The Last Night of the World in the lyric, the reason I did not find it is because they changed the story so utterly from the original in the for the screenplay. The original, if you actually read the Ray Bradbury story, is just a guy talking to his wife saying, "Yeah, you ever wonder what it'd be like if the world ended?" And it's like, "Wow, that'd be weird." And they're talking about it. It's just people talking for like 6 pages, and that's it. That's the whole story. There's no comet. There's no killing children. There's nothing like that. They invented all of that for the screenplay adaptation that they used for this 1969 anthology movie. And thank you, my God, thank you, Perry Geyer, for being willing to talk to some schmuck on the internet and set my mind at ease. So I'm just going to give it up to the guy. And for once, I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to play us out, not with the regular fam, and I'll take the copyright strike on this one now, and I'm going to play us out with As the End Draws Near, featuring Sarah McLachlan. Oh, by the way, another bit of trivia on this one. Network Records does not have a lot of money, but at the time, they had a fantastic lineup. Not so much these days. But anyway, but at the time, fantastic label mates. If you find any compilation of theirs from like 1989, buy it. It's worth getting. But they had no money. So when it came time to shoot the video for this one, they said, well, Sarah was on the record. Can we fly her out? She lives in, I think, Vancouver. Can we fly her out for the video to Boston? They're like, yeah, no, ain't gonna happen, kids. And so they got us some kind of supermodel to essentially mime along and pretend to be Sarah McLachlan in the whole thing. So when you see the whole thing, you say, wow, Sarah McLachlan's really gone downhill when you see her in a concert tour. Nothing like that. It's just, it was never her in the video. So just so you know. All right, guys, you have a good one. Let's get out of here and let's play some Manufacture. Here we go.
Because of the earth, are all reconciled. This is the last night of the world. When he wins, the end goes, yeah.